So, Peter, what's the one piece of career advice you wish someone had given you when you were first starting out?
I think for me, as particularly in a digital role, is having a clinical background, is to not be too worried about forging your own path. And certainly when I qualified as a nurse, there wasn't really anything like a digital nursing role. And we will see that as time moves on, like with specialist nurses that might come around in the future, or other such sort of digital leaning roles. And so I think if I had some advice given to me, would be just to keep pushing your own path and not worry too much that it might be not the traditional workflow for a nurse, but actually that you've got a great opportunity to make a real difference.
Can you share a pivotal moment in your career journey that has made a significant impact?
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple. The main one I would say was the first time I went to a conference, and where I was working at the time was on the intensive care unit, and they were really encouraging staff to submit things for display at conferences, and they were very proactive in getting staff to go to those conferences if they had things accepted. And I'd done a little project. I'd made like a little mobile phone app that just held like the guidelines on for the intensive care unit. It was really effective. Like everybody had it on their phone, and I submitted this as for review, and it was accepted as a poster presentation. And I managed to go to Vilnius in Lithuania and went to the European Conference for Pediatric Intensive Care. And that was massive, getting to be in that environment with all of the different groups from all over Europe was absolutely fantastic. And that really then broadened my horizons for what was really possible, that you're not kind of working in a silo, you're not isolated. There's a bigger world out there that's all working to improve, particularly for my role, children and young people's health, but also all healthcare is working. So working towards those goals. So that was really fascinating. And I think the other one was during COVID at the very, very beginning, just as things were beginning to escalate. At the time, I was in charge of the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit's electronic health record system, and we were expanding the intensive care ready to accept adults who had COVID. And within 2 weeks, we had turned an entire separate ward into a pediatric intensive care unit. We had all the equipment, we had all the interfacing, we had all of the same workflows and everything that we would have in the pediatric unit that I'd been working on for the previous 6 or so years, and we got that done in 2 weeks. And being able to deliver at scale like that was, sort of massive, and really showed me that when we really set our heart to something, we could accomplish anything. And it was, a horrendous time, but it was fantastic to be a part of that.
How do you approach challenges and setbacks in your professional life, and what's your go-to strategy for overcoming them?
I think for me personally, what I like to do is make sure that I just take some time to sit back and reflect, and just to judge if there is a setback, depending on what it is. There's always going to be sort of other elements that come into play. And if it's for a role, say, or if you're looking at another element, sort of going for a course or to try and get onto something, I think it's to not take that personally and to learn from it and develop. Nothing is ever a wasted opportunity. Nothing's ever, sort of like you missed out on. It's always worth learning from anything, even if you see it as a negative at any time. And I think being quite mindful of your own person, and being able to be insightful into, okay, well, what's going on here? Let's just take a step back. And I think that's how I like to approach things, because I like to be able to just sit down and just work my way through things. The other thing I would say is it's really beneficial is make sure you have a coach or have a mentor, and they can just be honest for you, and they can really help you just put a mirror up to yourself and just work through the progress of that. And I would highly recommend that people pursue that, because it's not something that you necessarily think about, but it's certainly something that's more widely talked about than it was, say, 10 years ago. And I think that's another thing as well that's really beneficial.